Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with Monday Special. Now, first comes love, then marriage follows, and then the happily ever after. But for some couples, the happily ever after never comes. Their lives are cut short when fits of jealousy and rage lead to fatal crimes of passion. But are these cases truly on the rise? And if so, what could be the reason? Wilkista Nyabo explores this topic.
One night in December 2014, Linda Wanjiku Irungu stayed out with her friends, celebrating ahead of her 28th birthday. This would later spark a quarrel with her boyfriend, businessman Erastus Odhiambo, when she finally returned to the house they shared in Buruburu Estate. Angry words were hurled into the night as the fight escalated until Odhiambo allegedly drew out his firearm and shot her. Linda's death sending shockwaves among friends who had watched the couple go through turbulent times, never imagining that it would end this way. On 19th September the following year, in a different part of Buruburu, neighbors had Farid Mohammed cry out in pain. His girlfriend, 21-year-old Ruth Kamande, had reportedly stabbed him 22 times. He would die while receiving treatment, his girlfriend now behind bars. Events mirrored in the death of 25-year-old footballer Kevin Ikatwa in March this year. He succumbed to stab wounds sustained after an argument with his pregnant girlfriend turned violent. These the names and faces in some of the crimes of passion that caught the attention of the country, raising questions again and again about what is at the heart of these episodes.
So we don't wait until things happen.
Kennedy Ongaro, a sociologist, blames the phenomenon in part on the breakdown of the family unit.
Drunken parents with the drunken daughters and sons. So who will be a mentor? Who will be a person of character, of integrity to these particular young ones who would like to help or copy good behavior from any normal family?
The change in societal norms, he says, is often manifested in vicious battles as competition for life partners collides with financial and economic pressure.
They would like to get out of the relationship which they have been into, to go for a richer boyfriend or to go for a richer girlfriend. And in the process, those kinds of couples crop up. Then they find that they cannot cope anymore.
Others theorize that a section of Kenyan youth simply lack the tools to tackle the hurdles that crop up in relationships, and when disagreements occur,
better they kill them not to go to the other boyfriend or to the other girlfriend.
The theories varied even as youth continued to search for a different ending, a new version of happily ever after. Wilkista Nyabo, Monday Special.
Thank you for that, Wilkista. Some disturbing details there. And I'll now introduce our panelists who are in studio. We have Dr. Ken Oko, who is a sociologist, who can take us through the evolution, so to speak, of relationships and why they seem to be a lot more violent now than they were before. He can confirm if that's the case. And we have Dr. Oscar Githua, who is a forensic psychologist. What are the signs and symptoms that you're dealing with someone who is volatile and could end up really injuring you in a relationship? And of course, we have our audience. We'll hear from them shortly as soon as we ask them a few questions. Thank you all so much for coming here. Maybe let's start with you, Dr. Oko, and it's the statement I've just made that you can confirm. Are relationships right now a lot more volatile, a lot more violent than they were before?
Yes, definitely. Life has become difficult in the land of love. You know, there seems to be an evolution going on, not just with human behavior, but also with the way we relate with each other. And once we start trying to quantify that relationship and trying to, you know, define the limits and the realms of love, we start getting issues, and people are now engaged more in, you know, very active competition, emotional competition, and not the usual congruence that we used to have in older times, when two souls would just come together and have so much fun together. But that's not happening anymore. These days, the two people in it are competing with each other, and then there are other competitors who are, you know, holding spears, standing by the side. So there's been quite a bit of social evolution that's gone on with human relationships in modern society.
And making it, giving young people especially, and we'll hear from them, a lot more pressure when it comes to dating. Dr. Oscar, why do you think young people are increasingly resorting to violence, sometimes even killing, in a way to express their anger or try and resolve, so to speak, the issues that they're facing in relationships?
Wow, thank you so much, Janet. I think it's a very poignant question. The one thing I'd like to talk about, just like Dr. said, there's a lack of partnership in relationships, but more importantly, a lack of communication. normally there have been channels of communicating. If you had problems with someone, you probably had the society to come and help you out. You could speak to your parents or whatever it is. But because nowadays young people choose to actually have their relationship hidden somewhere, alone in their own enclave, I think what's happening is that they don't even have the skills. They don't even have the correct mentorship to actually navigate some of these problems that they have.
So they suffer in silence.
They suffer in silence. And also, on top of that, they do not know how to communicate effectively with each other. And because of that, they actually get frustrated, especially for men. I think, of course, we know the statistics are higher where men are concerned. But because men seem to have less abilities to communicate clearly, they resort to a bit of anger and physicality.
Okay, we'll come and ask you a few more questions. We'll now turn to our audience, and you're all relatively young, dating, have been or are in relationships. Maybe I can start with you, and you'll say your name before you answer. But what is it about dating today that is so complicated for young people that's adding all this pressure, that's making them act out in very violent ways, do you think?
Okay, I'm Joel. Yes. So I think we're trying to live like you're married already, where you expect me to be like your wife. I'm your girlfriend.
Yeah.
So I'm not supposed to act like a wife.
Okay.
If I go out, I'm supposed to tell you what time I come in, but I'm still your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Stop giving me that wife title when I'm not your girl. When I'm not your wife.
It's the wrong expectations, and that makes you. Oh, okay, that's interesting. You can say your name and tell me whether you agree with what Joel has said.
My name is Jasper, and I partly agree with Joel and I partly disagree with her, simply because we live in a society where things are moving at a very fast rate. Looking at the social media, for example, every young person who is in a relationship wants the whole world to know about it. And at the end of the day, if you look at it from the perspective of the boys, or rather men, as they would love to be called these times, you would realize that most of them, when they get into relationships, they want to see their mother in the partners they have.
So almost similar to what she's saying. She's just shaking her head like she's not about that.
That is what most men would go expecting.
Right.
Only to realize that the crop of ladies we have right now, things have changed. These are ladies who would want to go, they would want to go out on Fridays, they would want to go on these road trips and all these. Our mothers never used to do that.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, you find there is a conflict. I want this, I'm not getting this.
Okay. What are your thoughts on why there's so much drama when it comes to young relationships?
Okay, hi, I'm Maureen.
Yeah.
And I'll back up Dr. Oscar as you see this lack of communication when it comes to relationships. And I'll also speak on social culture, where most of us youths, we're so used to the social culture where I can quote like clubbing, the club life. We're so prone to it that every night, every Friday night, we expect that you have to go out. So when somebody comes and takes in my space, I feel like I'm invaded. Yes.
Okay. Interesting again.
I have a different opinion.
Your name, please?
Yes, my name is Python. That's P with an I. So I think we are having a lot of expectations to people who haven't been taught. They haven't gone through premarital classes, and we expect them to carry themselves in a mature way, like the way we may carry ourselves. Let me try and put myself in the mind of that lady, 19-year-old girl, pregnant. We don't know whether she dropped out of school. She's living in Kangemi with her boyfriend, and then maybe the boyfriend is cheating on her. He dares and goes and puts a Facebook picture with another girl. So I'm trying to build this little girl, 19-year-old. And so when the boyfriend comes at home, of course I'm in pain. I've been betrayed. And the least I can think of, first of all, I'm irrational. I haven't been taught counseling or anything. I just think of getting that pain and to transfer that pain to him for doing exactly for hurting my feelings. So I think we're having a lot of expectations. I think it's a shared responsibility. Even as we continue to say as young people I think we are so irrational. I think so many institutions have failed, not just the young guys.
So to mentor, before we go back to our experts, The violence, though, it's shocking. The levels of violence, the incidents of violence. You obviously, you sitting here, you're coming from a different perspective in terms of this is my view on relationships and not necessarily a background on violence. But I'm trying to get into the minds of young people. Where is that rage and anger coming from that would lead someone to stab 22 times? And I know Dr. Oscar can better explain the psychology, but just from your thoughts, why do you think there's so much anger in young relationships?
Okay, personally for me, I would say that this is a case of these are things that have been happening for a very long time. They have probably not been brought to the limelight. So you realize the youth have been seeing these things happen and no action is being taken. Whoever is committing these crimes, nothing is being done to them. So they sort of believe we can get away with this. So you realize today 22 times, tomorrow 19 times. Nothing is said after that.
Okay.
So they sort of realize it's sort of a scenario where, let's say, for example, the supermarket. We all know that if you go to the supermarket, you cannot pick anything from there and get out of it because there are going to be repercussions. And repercussions are always there.
But here you don't see the repercussions.
But here you don't see the repercussions. So imagine a scenario where people go to the supermarket, they pick things, they walk away with them, and nothing happens. Some other person will do the same thing.
Okay, interesting perspective. Can we hear from you before we go back to our experts on why you think there's that level of violence and rage, even with the women the one also being the perpetrators?
So Janet, look at it this way. You've been with someone for 5 years, yeah? You believe you're the main chick. Then all of a sudden, someone comes and call you, tell you, hi Janet, you know, I'm seeing your man. You're like, how long? 3 years. You've seen him for 5 years. Won't you range? You don't want to kill someone, but the amount of anger you have will make you stab someone.
Okay, let's intervene right there and come back. But you see, Joel is, I think, projecting what a lot of young people are actually feeling. Maybe we can start with you and ask you whether this is surprising, whether you're seeing these trends escalate, and again going back to the reason as to why, what in society is creating that heightened anger.
You know, Janet, I think that the whole definition of love has totally been messed up.
Okay.
And that's why we're having a crisis, because there's this thing we are studying in sociology now called erotic capital. And when you're engaged in, you know, trying to invest in erotic capital, you find Instagram, you find Facebook, you find whatever, you know, WhatsApp, and everybody's posting something on it. So it becomes, like I said earlier, it's a competition. And that becomes an emotional warfare, that everybody who appears on Instagram says, oh, this is me now, this is how I look now. And most of the times it's probably a young couple. And this is somebody who you would also like to be like. Or maybe he's already with someone else like that.
So is it an embarrassment factor that makes the partner act out?
Like I keep hyping it, it's actually a competition. So when you see that, then you also tell your boyfriend, how come we can't appear on Instagram together? And the guy probably seeing 3 of you, you know, so you can't do that. So that's where the first problem starts from. But then when you're thinking of erotic and emotional investment together, the older times, it was so different, because you meet in the marketplace, have a chat, write each other letters, read it over and over again, and you know, the story ends there. And when you meet in the evening, it's probably up to the next day. There's no phone call, there's no Instagram, nothing. But today, you're in touch like every walking minute. You're on each other's case. And so the minute this guy probably gets distracted or something happens, like Joel is saying, you know, you're already, you know, there's something you're holding inside of you, and you're waiting for it to just fuse up.
Snap. Okay, interesting. Dr. Oscar, let's now delve into that mentality. Again, just echoing what she said of, you know, you've been together 5 years, I hear you've been with someone else for 3 years. It makes me want to snap.
That's right.
What is it about the mindset now that seems to, I think Jasper said it well, it's been happening for a long time, but right now there just seems to be a heightened level of it. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think the young people have said it correctly. And the one thing that probably is missing right now is, where are they learning from? Where have they learnt it from? So I don't think it came out of the blues, and I think it would be unfair to actually just talk about young people without talking about the society that they live in. They live in households where they've seen fathers abusing their mothers. They live in societies where they've seen men cheating on their you know, fathers cheating on their mothers and making it correct. So the young man lives with this idea that that is how a relationship should be. And the mother also tells the daughter, in fact, as many women now are told right before they get married, whatever the man does, girls just, you
Vumilia.
know, vumilia, and that's the way men are. But then we're talking about millennials. We're talking about Generation Y and millennials who want to do things their own way. So it does not make any rational sense to them or logical sense. So because of that, they want to fight for themselves. However, the way they express it becomes abusive. It also becomes very violent.
When you speak of expression, actually, we need to point out the media and the net and the internet. All these things are swirling around there doing something. But then now when you come down to the very basics, you find the Kenyan man has got his own issues. He's fighting with the Nigerian guy and saying, oh, get out of this scenario, you're not supposed to be here. The Kenyan woman, I say this every day, has evolved faster than the Kenyan man. So she's got her own issues like Jewel. You know, she keeps saying, I need to see this, I need to see this. Don't call me a wife, don't treat me like that. But the Kenyan man is still that guy who's trying to be decent. You know, in a relationship, you want to show that you are the man. The Kenyan woman has changed all that, and now she's looking at life in a totally different way.
So that's one of the issues, that imbalance.
The gender imbalance.
I'd like to hear from the men, but before we hear, hold that thought, we do want to run some clips. These are witness accounts of violence in relationships. Let's take a look at some of these clips.
Wakiwa wamekibishana kufika pale, bibi akakataa kutelemuka, alo akamshika akamfuruta wakiwa wamekimbia. Kufika hapa akamtoa nguo. Sasa alikuwa anamchukulia mikono. Alafu ndio alirudi akamkata na akapanda.
Aenda usiku huko kwa nyumba. Akamwambia, we jamaa unakatalia nyumba, we toka Nyang'au au nikupiga risasi. Akakoka bunduki. Wenye alikoka bunduki ndivyo alikunja akaingia nyumba. Akamwambia, we toka au ukikataa nitakuua.
Akatoa kisu akagogesa chini mara 3. Akamwambia anataka leo kuua. Jana akamuuliza kwa nini? Hakuna. Akamhoji akimtusi matusi barabara kitu kujua vile wanaulisana.
Huyu naye akaanza kumtunga hiyo kisu sasa. Alimtunga kisu ya kwanza hapa hivi, akachomoa akamweka ya pili chini na akachomoa. Sasa wamekimbianga na yeye kufika hapa, wanapata ni kama amekufa.
Hakuna ushauri unatoka kwa wazazi kwa vijana. Ni lazima hii mambo itokee kwa sababu wao wenyewe wanafanya vile kitu wanataka. Kwa sababu wanasema ni sisi tu.
We get two people completely lost. And when you reach that stage of being lost, you can do anything.
Interesting. Your reactions, again, based on what Dr. Ken just said, I think we'll hear from Maureen and Pithan. He's made a very interesting point about the fact that Kenyan women seem to have evolved much faster than Kenyan men. In fact, I'm seeing a message here, someone saying, Janet, the problem is that men refer to girlfriends as wifey, which is exactly what Joel said. Your thoughts on that?
Okay, somebody told me that maybe the empowerment on the woman has become too much, in that now she can face the man one-on-one, and she wouldn't really care, because after all she's educated and she has everything a man has. So I think maybe compared to the other generations of our mothers, they were very submissive. And then to our generation, maybe I will not tolerate, I will divorce. But now it's not tolerating, it's not divorce, let me face you one-on-one. So I think they really don't care, and I think there's a disregard on the laws of Kenya. But probably because nothing has been mentioned. We only report the cases, but in terms of awareness and campaigns to our students, especially in the university, I can give an example. Between a case of rioting and a case of somebody stabbing, the rioting case will be given much airspace, because that's news. But when a life is lost, maybe okay, it's something that happens. But now we're keeping losing each and every month, one person. So I think still back to my same point, it's a shared responsibilities, and I think the society also, we have just let them go.
I'll take some text just now, but let me hear from you, Maureen. Do you think there's an issue with, again, feeling like men set their expectations a bit too high, and that's causing a lot of friction in the relationships?
Yeah, on my say, I'd say that people fail to define the relationship. As much as you're into that relationship, you need to know, are you my side chick? Am I your Wi-Fi? As you've said earlier on. So I think the mindset of that relationship is really mixed up, and also the young love. People are engaging in this love, but they fail to understand that it's either a fully committed relationship, because if you love someone, I expect you not to harm that person.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very quickly before we take a break, some feedback. So this is John in Kitui, who says, Janet, this is an interesting generation. Even when they're dating, the boys refer to their girlfriends as my wife. So insecurity comes in when they see their wife with someone else. And then someone else says, well, I also think that the feeling of this can't happen to me has contributed. Kefa in Eldoret says partners are too demanding, dishonest. There's betrayal, communication breakdown, and lack of attention. And then Vincent is saying something that I think we've mentioned in passing, but I think plays a very crucial role. Technology has replaced the parental love and counseling that children used to get in the pre-90s years. The digital era is an era of errors when it comes to relationship, and God has been put aside. Before we continue with our discussion, let's put up some stills, some pictures of cases that were reported in the news. Let's see if we can bring up the first one, and I'll just give a little description of what we're seeing. That's Janet Karamana, aged 56. In October 2009, she had been found guilty of hiring a hitman who attacked and left her husband in a vegetative state until he died in March of 2010. And then let's move on to the next picture. We have Wanjiru Commander who, in September 2015, she stabbed her 24-year-old boyfriend 22 times in a feud over a text message. He later passed away in hospital. And then we have the next still. Let's see if we can bring that one up. And this we profiled in the news recently. Fatuma Ibrahim, 32 years old. In January of this year, she was attacked with a 10-inch knife by her husband following a domestic quarrel that had been going on for several weeks. That's just a few profiles of some of the news stories that have made headlines about love gone wrong. So let's try and now understand how we can resolve this. And maybe, Dr. Oscar, you can help us understand, if society is keen, can such characters, the killers or the perpetrators, can they be detected early enough? What can someone look out for to know that this is a very volatile person I'm getting into a relationship with?
Well, I think even before we get to the killers, we have to think about the violent person. Because the problem with our society right now is that we're not really talking about that push, that shove, that slap. Those small things that actually gradually, filter into some of the worst and most gruesome cases we hear. In my opinion, and actually with research, some of the things you look at is like controlling. If your partner is controlling, they want to know where you are all the time. Some people I know that in this generation, they say, I'm just checking on you. It's not really that I'm checking on you. I'm checking to see where you are. I was involved with some cases before where you have somebody who has a phone on the whole day, and they want you to keep it on the whole day. They're at work with the earphone, or at work with the earphone. They want to hear who's even talking to you, and if they hear someone talking to you, they say, who's that? Clearly, I mean, that's not love, that's something else. And of course, you also have the people who are also violent with you verbally. Someone who can actually threaten you and tell you something like, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to beat you up. And Janet, one of the ones that I think people don't really think about so much, isolation. If you find yourself in a relationship with someone and you find that you don't spend as much time with your family, with your previous friends before meeting this person, and just the two of you, I think that is a huge
It's a red flag.
Red flag.
Okay.
Because that person is isolating you and almost like wanting to possess you, and I think possessiveness is the other one closely tied to that. But they want to possess you and create this small little world where they're your God.
Okay.
And you're really like, you're only their all end all be all.
Yeah, I know we need to wind up soon,
Of
so
course,
I'll also
of
get,
course.
what should someone then do if you feel like you're in that scenario?
Yes.
Sometimes pulling out can also render you more vulnerable in
Yes.
terms of, so what do you do if you feel like you're in that position?
I think, of course, that's a huge, and we'd probably need another show on how to do that. But the idea, first thing, let us strengthen our social supports. Let's get back to family, the basics. Let's have a good network of friends, not the ones who are always on your side no matter what you're doing, but the ones who actually speak rationally to you. Because the problem is that sometimes you want the friends who say, oh, you guys look so cute together, you look so nice together, but they don't tell you that he's actually not allowed you to speak to me for the last 3 months. That's now the other thing that people need to understand. I don't care how many Dubai trips you do, how much are you connecting with your own family and your friends? So what you can do, speak to your parents, of course, speak to somebody else who's actually older than you, and of course the one that I think people don't like, speaking to law enforcement. The truth is that once you've been shoved and you've been hit, there are statutes in the law that actually do talk about violence and harassment. You can even get restraining orders from people. And the worst part about research, in closing, Janet, is that if you find someone who's violent, don't tell them you're leaving. Just leave. Because if you tell them you're leaving, that's when their anger gets pent up, and that's when they plan to attack you. But if you don't tell them, leave and go to someone who
Thank you so much for that. Dr. Ken, I think there's something that we haven't really delved into, but very briefly, as you give your closing comments, the pressure that comes with social media and relationships, how can these young people manage that when dating so that they don't get sucked into it and resort to really extreme measures when trying to resolve disputes?
Janet, I usually have a very simple and linear solution. I tell young people, when I walk into my class sometimes and we're having a chat, I ask them, who can define love? And they try, they fumble. Nobody gives you a proper definition of love. Let's start from there. All these solutions that we hear from the psychologists and all these guys, yes, they're there. But you know, when you take that particular position where you say, okay, fine, forget 1 Corinthians chapter 13. What is love? Those are just the qualities of love. But what is the definition of love? If we can actually get, especially from this age when you're still young and you want to understand it, it's the same thing I used to tell my daughter all the time. When some guy walks up to you, the first question you should ask him is, what do you want? Because men don't know how to answer that question. Because he knows what he wants, but he won't tell you. But you know, when you think about it, as long as we're able to define love and then we quantify it emotionally, like I was saying earlier, that erotic capital falls into place. You invest in the right place. But you see, a lot of times we say, let's do this, let's do that, but we don't know what is this thing called love. Let's try and get a definition. And when you go into a relationship, ask your friend, your partner, your whoever, your hubby or your wifey, you know, what is love, and then try and define it together and then live by those rules.
Thank you for that. I know we're getting the closing comments from you. As you give us your closing comments, what is the best way to communicate to young people about how to manage pressure in relationships and not to resort to extreme measures? I think we'll start with Pithan and then come down this way. Your thoughts on that? What kind of message or what kind of mentorship would work to allow you to better understand how to cope in relationships?
I think first of all, like my wife, she has a support system. So basically, she doesn't hold her anger and bitterness. And I think it's also a responsibility of the young people. Number one, there's so many of us having bitterness, and we have really bad backgrounds. So we tend to just remove that bitterness and just to our partners. So I also think the background really matters a lot. If we can be able to face our past, some have been in abusive relationships. So if you can just remove the bitterness and be able to know that at the end of the day, it's not that man, it's God whom you trust. So basically, don't put so much trust that when you're betrayed, now you
lash
gets
out.
Yes,
all right.
exactly.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your thoughts, Pithan. Maureen?
Okay, my thoughts on that would be there's a lot of competition and pressure. I can specifically say on the social part. Yeah, we have a lot of people trying to be like the Kim Kardashians, trying to make their relationship be like theirs. And so this makes them live a copy cut of what is not really there. And also the society at large should also insist on the guiding and counseling part. Because we find like it has actually been forgotten, So we lack that guidance.
And counseling.
Yes,
that's a crucial point. Okay, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, for me, I would agree with Daktari. It all boils down to the society in general. Like you see, there was previously, for the young kids who were caught with a dead body in the car, one of the mothers actually confessed that he never talks to me. In fact, I don't even know what he thinks. So let's talk with one another. Let us compromise with one another. It all boils down to the entire society. If you feel somebody is moving back, is not talking to people, try and dig deep. Know why he's quiet. Probably that you may be the solution for this person, making him or her rather not to go the stabbing way.
All right. Okay, thank you for that, Jasper. And finally?
So I think we should go back to our mothers, our parents, if you have an issue in your relationship, go to your mother, mom, this and this is happening. She will guide you. And parents, I think, should know how to guide their kids. You know, there's some parents, when you go to them, mom, this is happening, they're like, why are you even in a relationship? You know, I am 21, maybe 22. I'm supposed to be heading to marriage. I'm supposed to be dating someone who maybe I think we can get married, yes? And I also think communication should be something that should be enhanced on. If I feel something is wrong in our relationship, I should come to my boyfriend, tell him, baby, this is not working out.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for your honest views and for discussing that with us.